very talented director, Gus Van Sant, the creator of Drugstore Cowboy and My Own Private Idaho. He's a talented filmmaker, but this one just doesn't cut it.
This movie is a complete disaster. I saw it last September at the Toronto Film Festival. It had its world premiere. It was supposed to open in another 2 weeks. The audience sat there in stunned silence.
Yeah.
They walked out with their eyes on the ground. The studio realized they had a disaster on their hands, and they yanked it from release, re-edited it. I've seen it now a second time. It's a little shorter. It's completely incomprehensible. Drugstore Cowboy, and this is a great film containing the best performance in Matt Dillon's career. It's one of those films in which the story and the actors and the director are all exactly right for one another, and everything works with power and emotion. The movie is set in the early 1970s and stars Matt Dillon as the leader of a small band of drug addicts who cruise the country stealing the drugs they need from the street corner pharmacies. The drug heads look kind of glamorous to a nerdy neighborhood kid who would like to join up with them.
How much of this do you want for the box, female?
Hey, what do you think I am, some kind of closet pimp?
Kelly Lynch plays Dillon's wife. She goes along when Dillon tries to get a loan or some help from his mother, who's seen it all before and heard it all before and knows all about tough love.
Ma, you don't happen to have those clothes I left you last time I was sent to the joint, do you?
I threw all that stuff away years ago. I thought you were never going to get out.
Ma, how could you think that?
He is a thief and a dope fiend, and that is more important to him than I am.
If you say so, Ma.
And that's Grace Zabriskie as the mother in a very nice little performance there. Life goes from bad to unmanageable for the Dillon character, especially after one of his friends overdoses. He finally decides he's had enough.
Thinking about, heading back home, getting on the 21-day methadone program, cleaning up my hands.
Are you kidding?
No, I'm not.
Every once in a while, a movie comes along that gets everything exactly right, and Drugstore Cowboy is a movie like that. There have been a lot of silly movies, stupid movies about the 60s and early 70s, and about how the hippie drug love culture went bad, but this is the first one that seems to know exactly what it's talking about. The performances are all so good, they take on the authenticity of life itself. I not only believed in these people, I almost felt I was living their lives along with them. This is only the second feature by the director, Gus Van Sant, Jr., but he knows what he's doing every step of the way. And I believe for a long time that Matt Dillon is one of the best actors in American movies right now. This time, he surpasses himself. This is a great movie.
I thought it was really terrific, too, and I liked it. When you say great movie, then people think big scale. Yeah. What I like about this picture is that there are a lot of things done in the film to make it less appealing to us and to not showboat in any way, not to glamorize in any way or seem Hollywood in any way or seem phony. It has a documentary look. We talk about color being desaturated, taking some of the juice out of the color, and a lot of this movie is played at that level. I think of another film like River's Edge, which is
very good,
which is another picture that they're movies and they're not documentaries, but they have an edge to them that is very, very special. And this is at that caliber.
The nice thing, the interesting thing here is some terrible things happen during the course of this movie. These are four people who are trying to get high and have a good time, and eventually one of them overdoses, and they have to dispose of the body. They love this girl. They didn't kill her, but now they've got a dead body on their hands. And the way that one thing piles on another, not in a melodramatic way, not in a artificially scripted way, but just because things are just piling up, and that's what finally gets to Matt Dillon, to the Matt Dillon character. That's very authentic.
I wish that more actors of his level would see this picture so that they would say, you know, I'm not going to participate in this kind of phony kind of movie that Hollywood so often makes. Let's go a little tougher, because these people are smart enough. This is a really good script and very well done.
The number 2 movie on my list, the year's second best film, is Drugstore Cowboy, a movie set in the early 1970s and starring Matt Dillon as the leader of a small gang of dropouts who cruise the Pacific Northwest, stealing drugs from drugstores and leading a life of aimless waste and brief adventure.
I'm a junkie. I like drugs. I like the whole lifestyle, but it just didn't pay off.
Drugstore Cowboy was directed by a man named Gus Van Sant, Jr., who does such a good job of creating the period and the world of these characters that we drift right into it, not only because it's exciting, but because we can sense that for this time and this place, the characters have created a family for themselves. For a while, it seems to work. Then things start to go out of control. Drugstore Cowboy follows its characters as they get into one bad place after another until Finally, for the Matt Dillon character, using drugs is just more trouble than it's worth.
What I like about this film, you used a word called aimless, and the story follows the characters. For me, the very best movies are ones that have a time compression that doesn't seem to be like it's being compressed. They go along at a leisurely pace. This picture, you might as well be in the back seat of the car and standing in the group as they're walking. It doesn't seem hurried. So, you know, when you get that quick cutting of films.
I felt as if I knew them. I felt as if I cared for them. At the end of the movie, one of them makes it out of this lifestyle. One of them certainly doesn't. Two more are left in a holding pattern. And I really cared about what happened to them.
It was my #3 film, so we had it, both had it quite high on our list. When we come back, My Own Private Idaho with River Phoenix and Keanu Reeves.
I'll be right back.
She's cool, because it takes her a little while to get warmed up.
Unforgettable portraits of aimless and drifting young people. Now Van Sant has continued those portraits in a way in My Own Private Idaho, another story about young drifters living outside the law. The movie stars Keanu Reeves and River Phoenix as male hustlers driving into Portland in this scene on a stolen motorcycle, supporting themselves by selling sex. Later in rural Idaho, they share a pensive conversation about what it might have felt like to grow up in a more normal way.
If I had a normal family and a good upbringing, then I would have been a well-adjusted person.
The River Phoenix character has a personal cross to bear. He's a narcoleptic who tends to fall asleep suddenly, especially during moments of stress.
Oh, man.
Looks like this is the end.
My Own Private Idaho is a lot of things, and one of them is a comedy. The director, Gus Van Sant, has a sly, offbeat sense of humor and ability to use timing in order to frame a dramatic scene so that it's not only serious, but sometimes strangely funny and odd, too. There's dark humor, for example, in the tendency of the River Phoenix character to fall asleep at the most inconvenient moments in the plot. How can you have a drama when your hero is always falling asleep? On the other hand, Gus Van Sant seems to be saying, on the other hand, if he were awake, would it make much difference? Maybe not.
I like the picture. This is a challenging film, and I think one of the keys in this guy's work are home movies. In both Drugstore Cowboy and here, we see faded film of kids as children. And I think that the driving impulse that makes you want to follow these characters, even though you don't approve of drug dealing or selling sex, is that they are trying in some way to get back to, they want to know how their lives split apart from those sweet moments in those scratchy films that now exist and that precious childhood. This is something that has been a subject in movies constantly. It's a dream. You see it from Citizen Kane all the way through to get back to that space. And I like these journeys. I like where this guy sets it. No matter what they're doing specifically, emotionally, I always know what they're doing. They're trying to recapture a sweeter time.
You know what I also like is, and it almost goes back to the work of John Cassavetes, who's being honored around the country right now in a retrospective, is Gus Van Sant's willingness to let these characters exist in time. We can feel that each scene is not just divided up into the points that have to be made, but that the characters are living. They're making small talk. They're sitting around. They're smoking cigarettes. They're thinking about their lives, and so we can share that process.
I love pictures where the scenes run on longer than you expect them to go, because that certainly happens in life. Even Cowgirls get the blues from the very talented director Gus Van Sant, the creator of Drugstore Cowboy and My Own Private Idaho. He's a talented filmmaker, but this one just doesn't cut it. It's based on the Tom Robbins cult novel about a woman hitchhiker with huge thumbs. We can relate to that. This is a story of female emancipation with the beautiful Uma Thurman as the woman any man would stop for.
Now you bumming around?
Yep.
Hitchhiking?
Please don't think me immodest, but I'm really the best.
You the best?
I am. When I was younger, I hitchhiked 127 hours without stopping.
Her travels take her to the all-woman Rubber Rose Ranch, where she is supposed to shoot a feminine hygiene TV commercial. But first, she is befriended by a character known as Bonanza Jelly Bean, played by the actress Rain Phoenix, who talks about cowgirls being a symbol of women's freedom and parity with men.
In the Rodeo Hall of Fame in Oklahoma City, there are just 2 cowgirls. 2. And both of them are trick riders. Trick riding is what cowgirls have almost always done in rodeo. Our society sure likes to see its unconventional women do tricks. That's what prostitutes call it.
The River Rose Ranch is where this movie should take flight, but it is hopelessly grounded there in characters too quirky for their own good, including Angie Dickinson as the ranch's hostess.
Up there is where the fanny flap flies off at a rate of about 675 pounds a day. That's a lot of salted ham, sissy.
Even Cowgirls Get the Blues turns out to be all frosting and no cake, all oddity, little substance, with each character more outlandish than the last. I think the world has moved past this story. I think we can accept women living on their own together, so this story needs to take these characters, these fresh characters, and take us someplace fresh and provocative. The novel was written 18 years ago. For this film to work, I think the story had to be updated. I can't recommend even Cowgirls Get the Blues, and I'm surprised because this is a filmmaker I really like.
Either. The one thing that I liked in the movie was the way that Rain Phoenix photographs. I think that in a different movie she could be a very interesting actress.
Yeah.
This movie is a complete disaster. I saw it last September at the Toronto Film Festival. It had its world premiere. It was supposed to open in another 2 weeks. The audience sat there in stunned silence.
Yeah.
They walked out with their eyes on the ground. The studio realized they had a disaster on their hands, and they yanked it from release, re-edited it. I've seen it now a second time. It's a little shorter. It's completely incomprehensible. You sit there wondering, not only don't you comprehend the story, but you don't comprehend the purpose of the story. Well, and it's a waste of time.
I think that basically what they're trying to say is, I mean, they're trying to show her independent on her own, and all these women living on their own, but they're so what? So what?
Yeah.
You want to take us, we know that, now take us with these characters someplace.
And 2 very big thumbs down for the confused, disorganized, and pointless Even Cowgirls Get the Blues, which is bewildering to watch and painful to remember.
Okay, your westerns were intended as mass market comedies. I have a couple of bad westerns too, and my choices suffer from serious overdoses of symbolism and pretension. If it's anything worse than a bad comic western, it's probably a bad serious western. The first one is Even Cowgirls Get the Blues, and this has to rank as one of the most confused and meandering films of recent years, even though it was directed by the talented Gus Van Sant, who made Drugstore Cowboy. The movie stars Uma Thurman as Sissy Hankshaw, a feminine hygiene products model with great big thumbs, which she uses to hitchhike to a ranch out west, which is run entirely by women and headed up by Angie Dickinson. This is the kind of film that recycles statements from the blissed-out 60s and still thinks they're, quote, cool, unquote.
Trick riding is what cowgirls have almost always done in rodeo. Our society sure likes to see its unconventional women do tricks. That's what prostitutes call it. You know, tricking.
Our first film is To Die For, and it's a flat-out winner with a great Oscar-caliber comic performance by Nicole Kidman. Credit independent director Gus Van Sant and writer Buck Henry for creating simply one of the year's best films. You're going to love seeing this picture. To Die For is the story of a pretty young woman named Suzanne Stone who desperately wants to be on TV. Barbara Walters, Connie Chung are her heroes. For starters, though, she'll work on a local cable TV station as anything. Her boss remembers her relentless pitches.
Here's a memo on that children's show I mentioned with me as the hostess and the live in-studio animals. If you could just look it over tonight, give me your thoughts in the morning. Just a couple of pages outlining that concept for interviewing everyday citizens like mailmen, school crossing guards, to better inform our citizenry on what kind of valuable services are available to them.
When she finally gets on the air, she's almost over the top. But who has the heart to tell her?
Good evening from the WWE and Weather Center.
Weather Center?
The heavy system we're expecting. Moving down from the north. It's not going to show up after all. Because the high-pressure system is going to be moving up to the north.
Suzanne has been married for less than a year to a simple, nice guy played by Matt Dillon, but she has begun to find fault with him.
You want one of these?
No, thanks.
No? What about one of these? You're going in.
No, thanks.
Sure is great with those kids.
Angela, he's got to stop eating all that junk. He's getting a rubber tie around him like some old man.
Ever conniving, Suzanne befriends a local schoolboy and begins to plot to have him do away with her husband. He's played by Joaquin Phoenix.
I can't go home every night and have him trying to touch me. And all the time I'm just thinking about you.
Nicole Kidman is a revelation with this performance. Who knew she could be such a great comic actress? Her Suzanne is truly scary, much like Holly Hunter's killer Texas cheerleader mom on cable 2 years ago. Buck Henry's script is pop culture smart, and Gus Van Sant is the kind of director who simply can't make anything less than one terrific visual after another, with colors so bright, they're scary, as scary as Suzanne. To Die For is a genuine treat.
Well, Gus Van Sant wasn't quite that good a year ago when he made Even Cowgirls Get the Blues. That movie was a complete disaster. It really worried me. What happened to him? Now you're right, he is back with a vengeance. This movie is so evil and so mean and so satirical and another whole element that you didn't quite get to is the way she seduces these kids and the performances of the three young teenagers who are right out of the newspapers. You're always hearing about some older person trying to convince some teenager to bop off their spouse or something, and the detail that goes into these kids, they're not just handled in a superficial way, is really interesting.
The control that he has over this film is constant. Now, you really see how material that could be handled light, could be handled just as a laugh, is being taken over by a full director. You're in his hands completely. This is movie making at its best.
And you're just mesmerized by the power of her ego. She just wants to be on television.
And did you expect this performance from her?
Well, she's been good.
She's a good, but not in a comic role like this.
It shows another aspect.
Just terrific. Big talent.
Okay.
Die For is really the discovery of this week. This is, I think, just a terrific entertainment. I can't wait to see it a second time.
And let me see, what else is this? To Die For?
Oh, these are films that we review this weekend.
Oh, I see. Okay, all right.
To Die For, I'll jump. To Die For is a picture that just opened in New York yesterday, and it's terrific. Gus Van Sant, independent filmmaker, with a terrific performance by Nicole Kidman. Very funny, about a woman who desperately wants to be.
I'll see that in video, and also because I never get to go to the movies.
He
I'm very busy.
go to the movies.
I don't go to the movies. I'm too famous. I can't go. I'm too famous.
No, he's lazy.
I'm lazy. I like it on video. No, by the way, I will review this. I saw the picture of Nicole Kidman from that movie. She's gone up a lot in terms of appearance. She used to look very sloppy.
She looks
she looks good.
Well, in this movie, her whole thing is grooming. She's a cable TV weather girl.
Person. Yes.
And,
she looks good.
She does a great job.
She absolutely lives to be photographed.
Do you think those are breast implants?
Had never occurred to me.
That isn't part of your review?
No.
I see. I see.
I've spoken to the judge, and he's agreed to release you under my supervision. Really?
A brilliant but troubled young man is rescued from jail by a professor who sees the young man's genius and potential in Good Will Hunting, this year's Rain Man. It's an emotionally uplifting, extremely well-acted story of the flowering of a great mind due to some tender, loving care. The red-hot young actor Matt Damon plays a closet genius named Will Hunting, who has emotional problems that have had him underachieving for years, as he works as a janitor in the great school MIT, where he should be the star pupil, really, in mathematics. The teacher, who spots his amazing talent, sends him to a psychologist friend, played by Robin Williams.
You're an orphan, right? Do you think I'd know the first thing about how hard your life has been, how you feel, who you are? Because I read Oliver Twist. I can't learn anything from you. I can't read in some book. Unless you want to talk about you.
Another key player in the story, and the co-writer of this film, along with actor Matt Damon, is the actor Ben Affleck, playing Will's longtime best friend, who is frustrated by his friend not living up to his potential.
You don't owe it to yourself. You owe it to me. Because tomorrow I'm going to wake up and I'll be 50. And I'll still be doing what you get. And you're sitting on a winning lottery ticket. You're too much of a to cash it in. I'd do anything to have what you got.
And there's another person in the film who comes to care deeply about Will, an MIT student played by the fine young actress Minnie Driver.
There's my number. So maybe we can go out for coffee sometime.
All right, yeah. Maybe we could just get together and eat a bunch of caramels.
What do you mean?
When you think about it, it's as arbitrary as drinking coffee.
I suspect Matt Damon is going to get all the buzz from this movie, but Robin Williams comes off the floor from his lame role in Flubber to deliver, I think, one of his best performances in years. A smart, caring psychotherapist without the traditional Robin Williams wild man humor that so often, I think, keeps us from really believing the characters he's playing. Thumbs up for me, a big one for Good Will Hunting.
Yeah, and thumbs up for the script by Damon and Affleck, because they were able to come up with something that you don't see in the movies. It's real complicated in a couple of ways. First of all, this kid has one mind in a billion. He's one of the most brilliant mathematical minds on the planet. He had this shattered childhood. And for these people to help him, to kind of, the woman, the professor, the friend who says, if you are still here in 10 years, I'm going to kill you, and the psychiatrist, all trying to help him. It's a wonderful building process that allows him to realize his potential. It's such an original idea for a film.
Well, also, they give a sense of place, too. These guys met in Boston or near Boston. They went to school together, these two young actors. They've got the city right, the accents right, and this Matt Damon is the real deal. That's, I mean, he's got the great looks, but these are different characters, Rainmaker. there's a, what can we say, how about Boonwellian rather than Freudian slip?
Very nice, okay. Very nicely done.
My video pick this week is a new format that seems to be quickly gaining in popularity, and I'm talking about DVD discs. The movies that come on disc the size of music CDs are reasonably priced and can be rented in a lot of places and deliver a picture and sound which are twice as good as standard videotapes. There are now about 2,000 titles available on DVD, and I've made a selection from new releases that came out just this week. For example, the DVD version of Good Will Hunting with no less than 11 scenes that were not used in the movie.
It's like tic-tac-toe. There's your arithmetic progression right there. Yeah, it would appear we got that proof in under the wire after all.
DVD machines are available for around $300. There's a competing format named DivX, D-I-V-X, where you buy a disc for $4 or $5, can watch it twice within a 48-hour period, and don't have to take it back. Maybe that appeals to you. I don't think the plan makes much sense because viewers like to go back to the store to rent their new titles. And besides, DivX doesn't have many titles available. If you're thinking for a video upgrade for the holidays, I recommend just plain DVD.
I'm starting with number 8 on my list, Good Will Hunting. This year's Rain Man, the sweet story of the flowering of a brilliant brain belonging to a young man with a low self-image. Matt Damon, the hottest young new star of the year, plays a character named Will Hunting, and he blossoms through confrontational therapy sessions with a psychotherapist played nicely by Robin Williams.
It's different from most of the girls I've been with. So call her up, Romeo. This girl's perfect right now. I don't want to ruin that. Maybe you're perfect right now. Maybe you don't want to ruin that.
Now, the two actors who play best friends in this movie, Matt Damon and Ben Affleck, grew up as best friends in the Boston area and wrote the script for Good Will Hunting. And their script captures what it's like to be young, smart, and confused. They didn't dumb down their characters, a disease that kills most movies I see. That's why I like Will Hunting.
I liked it too. It's not on my top 10 list, but I did like it. The only thing probably that kept it off my list is the fact that all of the specifics and the characters are so original. The arc of the movie is so really completely predictable.
The arc is that, and because of that I liked it so much, told me just how smart the writing was, and also a sense of place. And you and I both respond to that.
That's right.
When you say, yeah, they've actually lived here, they know it, and now I know what it likes to live here in this Boston area.
It's a good movie.
Say, that's the one I'd have picked for you myself.
How much will it be with my car?
You mean you don't want the usual day and a half to think it over?
No.
You are in a hurry. Somebody chasing you?
Of course not.
And that's a scene from a most curious film, a virtual, shot-by-shot remake of Alfred Hitchcock's classic thriller Psycho that he made in black and white in 1960. This new film by the well-respected independent filmmaker Gus Van Sant, who directed my Own Private Idaho and Drugstore Cowboy, as well as last year's big hit, Good Will Hunting, may have been a fruitful exercise for him in film scholarship, shooting it in color, and recreating camera angles, but it plays as just weird for those who know the original. Psycho is the story of a woman from Phoenix who steals some money in order to marry her financially strapped boyfriend. On the run, she checks into a motel operated by a strange young man named Norman Bates.
Got a vacancy?
Well, we have 12, in fact. 12 cabins, 12 vacancies. Cabin 1. It's closer in case you want anything.
That's Anne Heche in a role originally played, of course, by Janet Leigh, and Vince Vaughn, who attempts the impossible, playing the legendary role, the defining role in Anthony Perkins' career. He's simply not as creepy. Could anyone be?
I meant well.
People always mean well. It's not as if she were a maniac. She just goes a little mad sometimes. We all go a little mad sometimes.
Actually, it's hard to imagine how this project could have worked. Black and white has more impact, And once you know this famous story, it's hard to be shocked as you just sit there and wait for its most famous scenes. And the psychologist's concluding explanations of Norman's behavior, it was as hard to follow now as when I first saw Psycho nearly 40 years ago. What I really feel is if you want to see Psycho, it's obvious. Rent the original.
Rent the original, you're right. And the psychiatrist's statement is a complete waste of time. That I just cut that out. Hitchcock should have never put it in. But apart from that, I know this movie will be studied for years to come by film students curious about the experiment. What would happen if another good director took somebody else's film and remade it with a different cast? But the fact is, the cast, it's just like the original Psycho is. It exists. It's a fact. It's a classic. It's
There's
a moment
nothing
in
to
time.
be improved.
There's nothing to be improved on. Vince Vaughn, you're right, is not creepy enough.
Couldn't be.
I was thinking that maybe Jeremy Davies, the guy who plays the cowardly little corporal in Saving Private Ryan, might have been good casting. Or from this very cast, Viggo Mortensen, who's supposed to play the straight arrow boyfriend, is actually creepier than Vince Vaughn.
Roger, there are just some roles that you don't attempt.
That's right. If there's a role in all of film that you just can't duplicate, it's Norman Bates by Anthony.
Everybody wants to see him.
It's like somebody else playing Citizen Kane other than Orson Welles.
Okay.
What's the point? Okay.
You got something for me? Souffle, baby!
Sean Connery is a recluse who, from his window, keeps watch on his neighborhood in Finding Forrester, a film that celebrates the art of writing and the bonds of friendship. Echoing the personality of J.D. Salinger, Connery's character, William Forrester, wrote one great novel in the early 50s, but then he virtually disappeared. Rob Brown plays Jamal Wallace, a basketball star whose potential as a writer is so exhilarating he breaks through to Forrester. They become pals.
They got some contest at school, this writing thing. You ever entered one of those?
Writing contest?
Yeah.
Once. A long time ago.
Did you win?
Well, of course I won.
Like money or something?
The Pulitzer.
The eccentric Forrester hasn't left his apartment fortress for years, but Jamal coaxes him out on his birthday.
We'd spend our summers here. And if we were lucky, the falls.
A lot of falls with those teams.
Not enough.
Finding Forrester has many of the same mentor-student elements of director Gus Van Sant's Good Will Hunting, and some of the final scenes reminded me of Scent of a Woman. But you know what? Those movies won gold trophies, and Forrester is every bit as good. We all know Connery can play larger than life, but it's the vulnerability he displays here that makes this a career-crowning performance. Newcomer Rob Brown excels as Jamal, and F. Murray Abraham and Anna Paquin provide stellar supporting work. Finding Forrester is a beautifully spun story about the magic of the written word and the power of friendship.
You know, I agree with you on this, and I agree with you about Rob Brown, who was in his first movie, just as Sean Connery, you know, has been an actor for 50 years, and they worked so well and so closely and warmly together. And this is the first movie I can think of about writing that is right about writing. His advice, you know, don't wait for inspiration. Start writing, and inspiration will come during the act of writing, is the only good advice I've ever heard about writing, because everybody else is always trying to plan and prepare, and that just doesn't work.
And Connery's got some great lines about how writers use their work to get women in particular. We talked recently about a movie called Pollock, and we talked about how hard it is to show painting. Well, it's even harder to show people writing and make it interesting, but this is a really well done, as you said, depiction of the world of writing.
And a total change of pace for Sean Connery, who is, you know, I think James Bond, after all these years, people still think of him as James Bond. He's such a versatile actor.
Yep.
Bolt the door if you're coming in.
A reclusive writer strikes up an unlikely friendship with a young man who's an equally gifted athlete and student. Their bond eventually renews the mentor's drive and offers the protege a new outlook on his future.
Finding Forrester is the title, but it really means you do find Forrester, and he finds himself in a way, and the real key to it is the boy.
The plot somewhat reflected Connery's relationship with first-time actor Rob Brown.
They got some contest at school, this writing thing.
How does that work when you have a film that for long stretches is basically a two-hander, and one actor has been acting for 40 or 50 years, and the other has been acting for 40 or 50 minutes?
It's pretty rare, you know, to get, but then in terms of learning, He was wide open, and he's very smart. He's a very intelligent boy. He's got straight A's in his subjects and everything. He's still at school. He's only just turned 16.
There's a question in your writing suggesting what is it you wish to do with your life?
It's about friendship, which, funny enough, when we were publicizing The Man Who Would Be King and had lunch with you in Chicago, that's the only other film I think I've ever done that touched on the subject of friendship. You know, it's not a first in the queue of the commodities around.
Do you expect me to talk? No, Mr. Bond, I expect you to die.
What is it about this character that is so strong that he is able now to continue on into the 21st century?
He stood up so well. They're sure there's going to be a bit of sex, a bit of fun, a bit of action, a bit of drama, and it's going to be a bit of a ride, a bit of a joyride. Never trust a naked woman.
I have nothing to sleep in. Somebody stole my luggage.
Really? I'm shocked. It's amazing what's getting stolen these days.
One thing I want you to tell me now that I'm old and gray.
You're lucky you've got gray.
You're 70.
Yeah.
And you're still not only a leading man, but a leading romantic man.
Yeah. Also, it's good to have good hair pieces.
When you need them, but of course you have led the charge to baldness.
Yes.
In male sex symbols. Because it's
I'm Roger Ebert, ABC 7 News.
Number 5 on my list is Gus Van Sant's Elephant. Working with a cast of non-actors, Van Sant's camera zigzags through a large high school in the hours just before 2 students launch a Columbine-like shooting spree. I've visited Columbine and I've walked the grounds, but the unsettling truth is that it seemed like any other American high school, and that's the perspective Van Sant brings to Elephant. His film offers no easy answers, no easy explanations or motives, because you know what? They don't exist.
You know, this was a good year for the movies. Both of the movies you just mentioned are not on my list, but I gave them both 4 stars.
I think a very strong year.
Okay, Gus Van Sant has just made his 3rd film in a row in which the camera watches young men in the process of self-destruction. All 3 movies are minimalist, unplotted, and without a word of explanation, and all 3 are haunting. Gerry, I was the person who liked Gerry, by the way.
You were.
Was about 2 friends who get lost in the desert. Lost, that's it. Elephant, the Golden Palm winner at Cannes 2003, was loosely based on the Columbine killings. And now comes Last Days, inspired by the lonely death of rock star Kurt Cobain.
You have to come now. You can go. You can get out of here. No one's here. You can go. It'll be easy. If you stay here, you're just gonna...
That's Kim Gordon from Sonic Youth as a friend who visits the rock star named Blake and played by Michael Pitt. Blake has withdrawn into isolation in a gloomy house in the woods, and he's in the final countdown of death by gradual overdose, at least apparently, because no drugs are ever depicted actually on the screen. The film is more interested in his mental state. Watch how detached he is in this scene.
Do you plan to expand your business in any way? Okay?
Yeah, there's bugs.
Okay, all right.
The film is going to be too quiet and slow for a lot of people, but I liked it even more on the second viewing than on the first. I admired the way Van Sant doesn't try to supply some kind of phony explanation for what happens, but simply shows this rock star drifting depressed and absent-mindedly into death. Thumbs up.
Thumbs down for me. I hated this movie, I think, in a way that you can only hate movies made by really talented people who have a lot of skill, and it just got under my skin and drove me nuts with these endless shots of this guy mumbling and eating cereal and stumbling around. And it might be a fairly accurate interpretation. You know, it's inspired, as you said, by the Kurt Cobain story, but that doesn't make it an interesting movie.
I find it, you know, if people have the patience and the curiosity to see a film like this, which you obviously lack, I think that what you will find is that drug overdoses don't have all kinds of dialogue in which people talk about psychological motivations, unhappy childhoods, and addiction.
but basically they're very sad, and that the person toward the end is just
that's probably
more
true.
and more and more and more cut off and alone, and this movie is haunting in its portrait.
You know, this character...
it de-romanticizes the glamorous deaths of rock stars.
Yeah, but the problem is the first 27 years of this character's life are probably a lot more interesting than the last 3 days, and this movie's about the last few days, and it's just maddening to have these endless shots. He walks by, and then the camera just stays on the trees for like 20 seconds, and it's just so self-conscious, and I just, like I said, it drove me crazy, Roger. Sorry.
Now, for the world's most unlikely double bill. One is from a high-profile director, the other stars a well-known actor, and you can watch both at home. The good one is called Paranoid Park, which is in theaters and available on demand. It comes from writer-director Gus Van Sant, who's had his share of mainstream success with Good Will Hunting and Finding Forrester. Lately, he's been working in a more experimental vein, and the title Paranoid Park refers to a skateboarding park in Portland, Oregon, where the main character, teenage Alex, gets away from his troubled home life. We soon learn Alex has been involved in a horrific accident at a nearby rail yard.
So you went to Paranoid Park?
No.
You did not? Okay. Where did you go?
I didn't want to go to the park by myself, so I didn't. Yeah, no one wants to go to Paranoid by themselves, man. That place is scary.
I found Paranoid Park more intriguing than just about anything Van Sant's made lately, and unlike some of his other films featuring non-actors, like this one does, this one isn't just a lot of pretty pictures. The picture is small, but it's very rich.
But I'm going to disagree with you on Paranoid Park, Michael. I like Gus Van Sant a lot. I liked movies like Elephant. I thought was a really strong film. One of his
that's
more
not nearly as good as
experimental
this
films.
one.
Yet another movie about misunderstood teenage skateboarders, and we get the hand jiggle camera, and we get the hipster music, and I feel like we've seen this all before. And I really, you know what? Movies about these kind of misunderstood teens who are walking the streets, and their parents are not involved, and they get into trouble.
You're making it sound like an after-school special, and he's not working in that.
It's not an after-school special. It's indie on top of indie on top of indie filmmaking that we've seen before.
To me, I have been real frustrated with Van Sant's films lately, unlike yourself, but I think this one, it actually, all the style he's working for comes together.
Dull and dreadful.
Oh!
All right, at number 4, as good a biopic as Hollywood can produce. Ben already mentioned it. Sean Penn as Harvey Milk in Milk. It takes about 60 seconds to forget this is Sean Penn playing Harvey Milk. There's plenty of talking in this performance, but it is Penn's moments of silence, his eyes, his expressiveness, that often best conveys the essence of Harvey Milk. I don't say this often. This film could have been better if it were longer, but a movie leaving you wanting more is a rare treasure.
If you say anything about politics or the campaign or what speech you have to give or anything, I swear to God, I'm going to stab you with this fork.
I just wanted to say that this is the most wonderful dinner I have ever had.